Welcome to the Goverlan version 8.5 sneak peek. This is very exciting. We are going to be showing you what we've been working on for the past several months, how we're releasing this version 8.5, and then what's coming very soon afterwards. Those are some of the things we're going to be addressing today. I'm joined off camera by Gabriel Albano, who will be here for any of the more technical questions on how this technology that we're introducing works. Gabriel joins us from our engineering team. He's one of our engineering leads. So if you do have some of the more technical questions, you're not going to scare me off. I'll just switch it over to Gabriel. So we have good reinforcements today. What we're going to be demoing for you is actually up on my screen, and I hope everybody can see it okay and hear me okay. But what you're actually looking at here is the my.goverlan.com customer portal. So if, most of you on the call today should already be Goverlan customers, and if you've received an invite for this demo in an email, you've received that because you've been identified as a license administrator. And we're going to be talking about what a license administrator is and kind of what you're going to have to do when we make this change and we push this change out to all of our customers. The biggest change that we're introducing in Goverlan 8.5 is not really a product functionality change. It is more of a licensing and management change on how you're going to manage Goverlan assets. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why we've made this move. The first one is it allows us to work independently. Previous versions of Goverlan had a third-party licensing copy protection piece built into it. We weren't getting a great result from that. It was interfering with our development cycles. We weren't really able to build on it as much as we would have liked. So we've spent the last few months developing something that worked better for us. This was all developed in-house and has been tested extensively over the past few months and is actually really ready to go. So first thing I'll get out of the way is the question that's going to come is, when is this going to be available? And the answer is by next week. Everybody, if you like what you see, you can make a move to this immediately. And then I guess the next thing I want to address is, why are we making this change? So what is the biggest effect it'll have on you? And the answer to that is how Goverlan is licensed today. So when you purchase a Goverlan license today, let's say you bought one Goverlan Suite license, you know that we provided you with 2 activations. So you can install and activate Goverlan on 2 machines, but for each license you purchased, you can only use Goverlan on 1 machine at a time. And this kind of got in the way in many instances, especially for our larger deployments and our very small deployments. Kind of both ends of the spectrum were affected by this. On the larger deployments, it didn't give you a good way to allocate Goverlan resources. And by that I mean, if you have 10 support staff of 10 support people or 100 support people, and not everybody was working at the same time. So they were working in shifts. There was no real nice way to share licenses, and that's one of the things we've addressed. We're moving towards a true concurrent user license. So all these licenses can be easily shared across your team, and you can allocate and divvy up resources all on your own using my.goverlan.com. The other thing it addressed is a good percentage of our inbound calls were related to licensing the product, something in the range of 30%, which is very significant for us. It basically meant that we couldn't spend time working on more technical issues, and we were instead helping folks, which we were happy to do, but helping folks transfer licenses and reactivate if things went wrong and reclaim licenses. And this is something that we feel that could be self-managed, and it probably serves both the Goverlan support team and our customer base to change the management of that, so that you can identify an administrator on your end, and they would be tasked with managing all of your Goverlan resources. So I guess this really helps both ends. It helps us in terms of, being able to free up our support resources to work on our more technical issues instead of licensing and activation. And it helps you in that you can now self-service on a lot of this stuff. To introduce this, I'm just going to walk you through our instance of the Goverlan portal here. Just point out some things, and then I'll show you how it plays with the product, and then we'll open it up to some questions. So this is a provisioned account already, and by the time we release this, everybody's account will already be provisioned. And obviously, everybody may have a different look for what their account looks like. Some folks only have one license. Some folks may have many more. This is kind of an in-between account. And you can see I have several different license types running down the side. 3 of them are suites. They're full versions of Goverlan. We've divided them into department B, B, and C just to show you that you're able to do this. They could all really be combined. But then we have another license type of just a standalone remote control. And you can see that if I click on Suite Department A, for instance, I can see that I own 5 licenses for Suite Department A, or 5 concurrent seats, and 3 of those are currently being used. If I click on View, I can see exactly which machines and which users are consuming those licenses, and I can see the type of license that they're using, whether it's a fixed license or a floating license. And I'll demo this for you, but the basic concept is when I license the product, when I launch the product, I can decide whether I want to fix the product to that machine. In other words, that license will always be consumed by that machine, or I can say, float this license so that when I close Goverlan, it releases the license, and when I open Goverlan, it consumes the license again. On a fixed license, if I fix a license to Goverlan, I obviously have the ability to revoke that license, and this would be really, really helpful for those folks who had a machine crash on them. So if you have a machine crash on you with Goverlan now, you may be familiar with, you may have to get in touch with us to free up another activation. Here you just navigate over that license and you select revoke, and it'll free up that license. I should mention that selecting revoke will not crash the console. It won't terminate that user session, so it's not a way of removing permissions from a user. If you're terminating a user, you don't want to just revoke their license. You want to do something like run a terminate employee scope action. And by the way, I mentioned again, this is being recorded and will be posted for any of you who have to drop for any reason. A floating license, again, if you launch the console, it consumes it. If you close the console, it releases it, and it's really that simple. And if you think about it, if you have a larger deployment where you're sharing Goverlan licenses, you can now install the console on as many machines as you want. Just like you can install our agents on as many machines as you want, you can now install the actual Goverlan admin portion on as many machines as you want, and you consume a license by signing into the product, and you release the license by signing out. Really that simple. The other thing I'll show you is running down this side, we have a list of authorized users. Now you can see, even though I only have 5 licenses, I can have many more authorized users, because it's really, we're concerned with how many licenses are being consumed at any point in time. So you can have 50 users all using 5 licenses, as long as there's only 5 users using those 5 licenses at any given point in time. We have different user levels. Most of the folks, like I mentioned on the call today, should be admin users. An admin user has the ability to create users, assign users licenses, or consume any license within the product. So you basically are an admin. You can do whatever you want in my.goverlan.com. We also have a concept of a standard user, and I'll go ahead and create one standard user right now. Just by hitting add user, I'm going to give the user a name, and this doesn't have to be a real email address. It can be a shared email address. Multiple users can share one user ID or sign in. Again, it works on concurrent uses of the console. So in this case, I'm just going to create a new user here, and I do want to receive the welcome email, so I'm going to put in a notification email, and this is going to be a standard user. So when I hit save here, it's going to go ahead and create that user, and I should get an email. Let me just launch Outlook again here. I should get an email that's welcoming me to the Goverlan portal and also assigns me a temporary password, which I'm forced to change at first sign up. So I went ahead and created that standard user. Now the next thing I can do is decide that I want to give that user access to a license. And by the way, here's my welcome email, just so you guys can get a look at it. And this is what your users will get as you create them in Goverlan. So they'll get some kind of welcome email that has a temporary password already in there. And then it allows them to sign into my.goverlan.com. And then whatever license you allocate to that user, so I'm going to give that user we just created only access to this standalone remote control. That user will now be able to just consume this standalone remote control license. Now, that user will not have access to any of the other licenses here unless they're added as authorized users. Now, again, the other side is admin users are authorized across the board. Because this is our company account, we have a whole list of admin users there. For the most part, you'll have a few admin users or maybe even just one, and then you'll allocate them that way. Coming soon into this My.Goverlan portal are a whole bunch of other features, including the ability to renew licenses, purchase new licenses, really totally self-managed Goverlan resources, so that we're able to focus on building really cool new features, which we have so much really awesome stuff coming out. I'm really excited for that piece. And you're able to focus on making sure your users have access to the things that they need access to, and your Goverlan resources are allocated properly. The really nice piece about this is it really makes sure that no license goes unused. You can really get a good sense of how many licenses are being used, who's using them, and at any point, decide that, hey, we can let a couple of licenses go, or hey, we definitely need some more. So really helps you figure out, exactly what you have going on in terms of your Goverlan install. So I think that's a good enough intro for now, and we can jump into the product and show you some of the product differences. And so you may have noticed that I am using in my sign-in, I was using this Suite Department A. We saw it allocated to my machine as a floating license. And that's the first thing I'll show you is if I open up my console here and I click Command, you'll see this looks very different now. Now we have the exact licensing information for which license this console is consuming. And you can see I'm using Suite Department A, and I'm using it in floating mode, and these are my enabled features. I have the full suite here. And I can see the other allocations and the available sign-ins and how many days left I have in my maintenance contract. Now, if I just close Goverlan, because I'm in this floating mode, it's just going to release that license back into the pool. That's all I have to do. I don't have to do anything else. Now, if I just click this refresh here, and we refresh our view, you can see it released that license, and there is no more license allocated to my machine. So here, if you have a larger size support team, if you're more on the enterprise side, like a lot of our customers are, this is really a much, much easier way to manage across your entire team. Folks who have Goverlan open are using the license. As soon as they close it, it just releases the license. And it doesn't require another sign-in. All I do is click on Goverlan, and you can see that as long as there is an available license in the pool, it's just going to go and grab one. Right, so now again, if I refresh here, we'll see that that license is now being consumed again by my machine. Now, you may see this little revoke along the side. Revoke is not really revoke. It should say reclaim, I think, at this point, because you can't really revoke a floating license. because the idea is that on a floating license, if the console is open, the machine's on and the console is open and there's a license available, it's always going to grab one. Now, if I click revoke, it's just going to free it up for the moment, but it's not going to crash the console. And that's because just like everything else in the Goverlan world, we work in a passive way. The console itself is not reaching out every second saying, hey, is there a license available for me? This is very passive. We're doing intermittent license checks just to see if there's one available in the pool. Now, if I revoke a fixed license, it will pull the license away from that fixed license and make it available to another machine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually sign out of my console and just show you what that sign-in process looks like. So you can see when I sign out, I'm presented with this login screen. And if I just hit escape, it's just going to disappear. So we'll just launch it again here. And the login screen, you enter your login ID and you enter your password. Again, a default password is set for you, which is going to be required to change. This is how you decide whether you want to fix a license or float the license. If this is checked, you're floating the license. If it's unchecked, you're fixing the license to that machine. We are actually going to sign in as our other user so that we can see what it looks like when a standard user and a regular user signs in. So here, first I'll sign in as my regular user. Now I'm an admin user, so I'm going to have access to all the licenses seen behind. So when I sign in here, it's going to give me a choice of which license I want to consume on this machine because I have multiple licenses available to me. Again, if you only have one license, that's the only one you'll see. But because I have multiples, I can choose which one down the list I want to consume. And then I just select the one I want and select use the license, and it's going to acquire the license and then license the console. Now you saw this time I grabbed the remote control only, so that's the only licensed feature. I'm going to sign out again and then sign in as my standard user, just so you get an idea of what your standard user experience may look like. So again, most of the folks on the call should be admins, but if you want to know just what a standard user experience is like, here I'll just plug in my password. And when I hit sign in now, I should only get access to that standalone remote control. And it didn't even give me a choice because that's the only one that I am allowed to consume. Okay, and now you can see again, I'm signed in as Ezra, not as Ezra.charm, which was the admin user. And so that's why I can only use this standalone remote control. So now if I jump back into my portal and I add the Ezra to one other license, so I'm going to authorize him on this license as well. And I'm just going to jump back into the console here, and I am going to again sign in. Now I should be presented with a choice of the two licenses. I can choose to grab that standalone remote control that I grabbed before, or I can consume the suite license because I'm now authorized on that, but I cannot consume any of the other licenses. I will also log in as Ezra so we can get an idea of what Ezra's portal may look like. Again, it's going to force that password reset on first login. But again, Ezra's portal, I can just see the two licenses that I'm authorized on. I can still see allocations, but I can't do things like revoke. And I can't perform any of the other administrative tasks like adding new users or anything else. I can only consume a license or see allocations. Again, this is probably, since I've worked at Goverlan for the past 2 years now, I think one of the best enhancements on the product, even though it's not building out any new, I guess, technology into the product or anything like that. The reason why I think this is so great is because it really frees up our customers and allows them to self-manage and also control things a little bit better, and also removes that kind of roadblock of, hey, I can only activate on 2 machines or install Goverlan on 2 machines, and there's no good license sharing or anything like that. So again, I think this is a great feature release. I think a lot of you will get a lot of value out of this, and it is ready to go. So this is going to be pretty much immediately available. The other thing that you'll see here is as soon as you're assigned a license, it gives you the ability to download your product. We'll have all the different product versions available for you that you're able to download. So if you want to just grab the latest version, the download link will be right there for you, and you can go and tell your folks, hey, as soon as this is updated, sign into mygoverlan.com, click download your product, update your product. The update process, it installs right on top of the existing Goverlan version you're running, at least if you're on version 8, right on top of it. There's no weird migration you have to do or anything like that. And this takes us right towards the end of our demo. I have a couple of technical notes to go through in terms of the license check and some of the other steps you may have to take. So in terms of license checks, what we're using is a straight SSL check. It's just an HTTPS request, and Gabriel corrects me if I'm wrong, but the only address, if you're in a closed environment, the only web address that we'll be hitting is gls.goverlan.com. That'll be the one thing you have to whitelist to open yourself up to this functionality. How do you go about migrating to Goverlan 8.5? And the answer to that is we are in middle of provisioning all of your accounts for 8.5. So if you're an existing Goverlan user, your account is already being provisioned for 8.5, and you'll receive a notification. The notification will go to the account administrator at the beginning. And once you get that notification, you'll be able to sign in, you'll be able to create authorized users and go from there. We do, if you're in a larger deployment where you have, you're supporting a lot of you have a larger support team, we will be able to help you set up the account by populating your authorized users. All we would need is a list of email addresses and whether they're an admin user or a standard user. And we'll message this out to you as soon as we open things up early next week. Couple of other things to mention. If you are in a closed environment, and we do deal with a lot of customers who their machines don't have access to the outside, so there's no external connection. You will have to wait just a little bit for this functionality, but it is coming. So what the idea is that we will be allowing you to basically license the Goverlan central server and deploy your licenses just internally. So we'll be able to hand you a license file, you'll load that up into the Goverlan central server, and then all your users will not have to communicate externally to acquire licenses, release licenses, or anything like that. With that, I'm going to go through a couple of questions that came in. I'm sure we have a couple of other things to point out, but we will, we'll take a couple of questions just to break things up a little. Are there restrictions to licensing if we put Goverlan over Citrix? If floating, it should not matter, right? And so the answer is that that's correct. This is one of the areas we wanted to address, was give folks an easier way to publish Goverlan as an app. And so the answer is that we're as long as that pool has a license available, you'll be able to publish it over Citrix or as a published app, and as long as you have less users, then you have actually, you're not exceeding your concurrent user count. There is no issue with that at all, and it should work really, really nicely. So I addressed the question on offline licensing, and we're looking at a deadline of mid-September for offline licensing. So if you are in an instance where you need offline licensing, where you can't, where you cannot, communicate with the outside, we do have a method for you. So another question about deleting accounts that were able to consume a license, and I just have to sign out here and sign in as my admin user to show you this piece. But you can, delete accounts as well. So if I go and delete this user account, it's going to give me the choice to just delete the account or delete the account and revoke all the licenses associated with this account. So I can have that option of either just deleting the account or making sure that and revoking all the licenses. But I stress again, revoking licenses is not the method we use to go and remove permissions from an end user. We're going to run a terminate employees custom action or scope action to make sure that they don't have those permissions. So what happens if the internet connection is down and or Goverlan servers cannot be contacted? And this is a great question. So the answer to that is that, again, our license checks are passive. So we are not going to go and lock people out of Goverlan. Even on the revokes, we're not going to lock people out of Goverlan. What's going to happen is that there's going to be a periodic license check. Now, if you revoke a license and that periodic license check kicks off and it sees, hey, my license was revoked, it's going to end that user session as long as it's a fixed license or a floating license and there's no other licenses available. But if you do revoke and there's no basically what's going to happen is we're going to wait some period of time before the console terminates, and it should never ever get in the way. You should have no instances if internet connection is down and or Goverlan servers cannot be contacted. The product should continue to work until everything's restored. And I think Gabriel may be able to add some color onto that if I missed a point.
Well, yeah, the way that is that it works right now, Goverlan will cache the licensing credentials. So in the event that it cannot contact the licensing system, it will keep working for a number of days. I believe that it's up to 7 days without having the option to check with the licensing system. After the 7 days, it's going to basically show an error, but I mean, it will keep working. It will keep trying until it can reestablish the connection and get licensed again.
And again, that 7 days will give you enough time to definitely contact us, let us know about the issue you're having. And again, we're going to have all different methods of making sure that you can still use Goverlan from there. Another question is, can we revoke a checked out license administratively if a technician were to have a license checked out and leave for the day? And that's the exact purpose of it. So even on the floating license, even though it's not going to crash the console, it is going to free up that license. So that, in this, if I sign back in here and so if I sign back in, let me just sign in as myself again. So if I sign back in here and acquire the license, so even my console is licensed right now and it's licensed in floating mode, right? But let's say I leave for the day and I forget to close Goverlan and release the license. You can absolutely just navigate over to there and it should be right here, and revoke it. So again, you're not going to see the console crash in the background, but what you will see is that license freed up. So that's the exact purpose. It's for administrative purposes so that you don't have users who lock their computers but left Goverlan open, leave for the day, and consume resources that other folks need. Are there reporting features for the licensing? So the reporting features we have so far are exactly what you see. Who's using it? which machine they're using it from, stuff like that. We will be building more onto this as we move through. Are there any restrictions to licensing if we put Goverlan on Citrix? If floating, it shouldn't matter. And again, we addressed that. No restrictions at all. Put it on Citrix. That's part of the reason why we did this, is so that you can allocate these resources very, very easily. You don't have to pay for software you don't use. And I know it's weird for a software company to say things like that, but I am proud to say it. It's one of the reasons why I'm proud to work here. What have we addressed the internet or portal unavailability? So Goverlan will continue to run for a period of 7 days, and that will give us plenty of time to work out whatever issues. And again, offline licensing is something that we're working on. When moving to 8.5, is there a newer version of the remote control agent that would need to be pushed out onto the end user's computers? Absolutely not. This is just a update to the licensing portion of Goverlan. The rest of Goverlan is staying exactly the same for now. Are there any functional improvements or fixes gained by upgrading to 8.5? Single admin environment and trying to determine the ROI. Maybe a better question is there a way to change to administrative consoles or the agent updates required? Again, there's no agent update required. All you're doing is running an install on the admin console. There's no change happening on your end user side. You're not pushing out new agents, nothing like that. You are just updating the consoles. And yes, there are tons of functional improvements. So one of the things we saw was that the other third-party component that we had plugged into Goverlan was causing instability issues in a lot of instances. And that is part of the reason why we've made this move. We've made considerable investments to do this. And the reason is because we want to improve stability and functionality for our customer base. So absolutely, I do highly, highly recommend, and it is going to become mandatory to move to 8.5 because that third-party licensing solution is being deprecated. So at some point, you're going to have to move, but you will gain immediate stability, immediate better control, better functionality than exists today. And I've been running Goverlan 8.5 for several weeks now. If you've sat through one of our previous demos over the past couple of weeks, you've been seeing 8.5. It is noticeably faster, more stable, easier to use, nicer to use. So, you know, I know a couple of folks from our dev team are listening in, and me coming from the sales and marketing side, this has been the most significant update that I've seen since I've been here. It's really exciting, and I think for anybody that tries it, you'll immediately see that as well. So another question, my company has multiple help desks across a variety of regions. If one region decides to move to 8.5 licensing structures, do other regions also need to change at the same time? And the answer is no. You're not forced to change even every user within the same region over at the same time. Your existing 8. whatever versions that you're running are going to continue to run, but at some point, you're no longer going to be able to reactivate on new machines just because that licensing service in previous versions of Goverlan is being deprecated. So as time moves on, everybody will eventually have to migrate, but it's not an across-the-board migration. What I actually recommend is we're going to go and provision everybody on this call, everybody who's listening in today will have their account provisioned. Go in there, get a good feel for it, play around, ask us some questions. We're here to support you all the way through. And so just reach out to us, let us know your questions or concerns, if there are any, and we will absolutely help you out. Another question here is, do I have to migrate to version 8.5, or can I keep using Goverlan version 8.0? And that is a great question. So in the meantime, you can continue using Goverlan version 8.0. Again, the licensing service in previous versions of Goverlan is being deprecated. It should be gone sometime in September. So by sometime in September, you should be moving to version 8.5. Now, previous installs of Goverlan are going to continue to work. Even, you know, they're not going to suddenly all crash mid-September. They're going to continue to work. The thing is that if your machine dies and you need to reactivate, you will no longer be able to do so on previous versions, only 8.5. So at some point, everybody will have to migrate to 8.5. So I do want to take a moment to discuss another reason, a little bit more color on why we made this change, and this really has to do with some of the other functionality we're going to be introducing into Goverlan in the near future. So moving away from the third-party licensing service allows us to get on our own development cycles, allows us to build very cool things into Goverlan, even offer different license delivery models. So since you're all customers, this may not apply, but you know, some folks may want to, maybe you have a project going on and you need a couple of Goverlan licenses on a month-to-month basis. You need, you know, you brought in some temporary workers who need access to Goverlan and you don't want to buy more licenses, but you would like to go in maybe a month-to-month SaaS delivery model. We now have the ability to service you. So, you know, you don't have to go and buy 5 more licenses for a temporary project. You can go and basically you lease licenses on a month-to-month basis in our kind of SaaS delivery model. We're also, Goverlan version 9 is right around the corner. Goverlan version 9 has been built on this licensing platform, and Goverlan version 9 is the thing that I am the most excited about. And I'll give you one little tease on what version 9 is, and I hope I don't get into trouble for this. So the little tease is that Goverlan is going to become fully functional for any machine with the agent on it and an internet connection. So you no longer are going to be tied to a LAN or a VPN. Any machine with our configured agent and an internet connection, the full functionality of Goverlan will be able to be used on it. So that includes like software deployment just over the web, remote control for unattended machines, and a whole bunch more. Some really exciting stuff. And this licensing portal allows us to have the flexibility we need to introduce all this new technology. The really cool thing about Goverlan version 9 is that it does all that while maintaining the security and integrity of the product. So it's not going to be where you're pinging a resource on Goverlan's end. Everything will still be hosted by you. We're going to have a way for you to communicate with machines over the web using the Goverlan central server. And somebody asked, why is there a central server tab on there? And the answer is because Goverlan version 9 is coming out, and you will be able to manage your true remote machines using Goverlan version 9 and define which machines you can access over the web. So the question is on Goverlan version 9, is this going to be proxied by Goverlan hosts, or can we self-host our own remote control servers? And that is the great question. And the answer is we are not going to be hosting anything. Goverlan will not be hosting anything. We distinguish ourselves by saying, you know, we don't want to be that single point of failure for all of our customers. You know, there have been a whole bunch of instances in the news recently with remote control solutions that may or may not have been compromised or things like that, you know, and it all has to do with this single point of failure where all of your customer base is hitting back to your servers, and then you have this area where, you know, you have a huge amount of liability. So we're instead turning that central server into the ability to be that proxy for you. So you're going to self-host the proxy server so that you can communicate with your machines. Wayne, I absolutely love your question because I tried to pitch that and got a lot of mean looks. So no, we are not rebranding to Goverlan, but that is great. So you're right. You're my kind of guy, Wayne. I appreciate it. That about wraps this up. If there are no other questions, like I said, you'll be hearing a lot more about this coming next week. I want to thank you all for joining this demo today. Again, this is something I'm incredibly excited about. I know that I've talked to a lot of the folks on the phone today, just in whether I did the demos when you purchased Goverlan the first time, or you've interacted with me on in other terms, and I can say that across the board, this is something that I think almost every single customer will benefit from. And just to tell you, like doing some pre-release demos for folks, just to kind of get consensus on whether we did things the right way. I've heard from enterprise level customers with hundreds of support staff that were really loved the concept of being able to allocate their resources a little bit more easier, because we have customers who literally once a week are purchasing a new license and kind of lost track of who owns what and where things are activated. So this will really kind of define that down to a single user who's the only user in their company who just wanted Goverlan installed on multiple workstations because they're running around a lot. So it really scales from your enterprise level customers to your single users. I think there's a benefit for everyone. And again, the stability thing is something that not to say Goverlan was unstable before, but we did have some reports, and I can say that that has improved a tremendous amount. And I think that about wraps it up. Again, thank you for joining us today. This will be posted online. I'll make sure everybody gets a link to the recording, and hope to hear great things from everybody, coming up over the next couple of weeks. And yes, just one last question came in. You will have the ability to test this new version. It's being opened up early next week. You can test it before you deploy it. We are not revoking any of the previous versions of Goverlan, but there is some point in time when they are going to stop working. All right. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend, and I hope to see you at another webinar. By the way, we hold weekly webinar sessions covering all different topics. So definitely attend them. Check out our homepage at goverlan.com. You'll see what the next topic is, and you'll be able to sign up. We'll have to get a new one up there right now. So that's what I'm going to go get to work on. Thanks so much, and have a great weekend.